Hi, Regina here, and I'm with Dr. Donese Worden once again, and today we're going to get into some of the tricky stuff that we run into when trying to read labels on our various supplements, because not everything is as it seems. And I love the fact she digs for the truth, and she digs deeper than just about anybody I know, and ferrets out the truth of this for us. We're not hoodwinked when we buy our supplements. So, Donese, welcome. Good to see you again.
Good to see you too, Regina. I would say patients and your listeners are not the only people being hoodwinked, as you're saying. I mean, physicians need to be trained in this. We weren't taught manufacturing. We weren't taught how to look at that safety and productivity quality. And so this is another lecture that I give to physicians and teaching them of the things that they should be asking their companies if they're using it as their medicine. These are the same questions that your listeners should be asking as well. And because I have formulated and been in that world and understand, I know how bad it is. And I tell patients, unless I know the quality of a supplement, I would rather than be on nothing than do something that may be more harmful than good. And we'll talk about what that looks like.
Interesting. So what's the first thing that we should be looking for on a label, and including the things that we should not accept on a label?
Right. So one thing, you're not going to become an expert overnight. It's a very detailed list of questions that I ask. Anything that I have in my clinic, I've looked at in batch runs. That means every single batch, not just once a year we take a look. Every batch, I know that the microbes, that means the fungus, the any bacteria that are growing there, that's been tested on that batch. I know that the arsenic and lead and other bad heavy metals that are found in many supplements have been tested for, and if they found them, they took them out. How did they extract it? Was it a chemical that's worse than the heavy metals? So how did they extract it? So the one thing that your listeners can ask for, they're not going to get that information, but what they can ask for is the certificate of analysis, called a C of A. I tell my patients, anything that you're going to take on a continual basis, you need to make sure that it is a clean product and that it has in there what it says it has in there. There are companies that have been, I will say the word busted, for having 10% of what they say. So let's say it says it has green tea in it, green tea extract. It might have 10% instead of 100%. How do you know what you're taking didn't work if you're not getting a full dosage? The issue goes back to no one really regulates it, Regina. The FDA is asking them to do CGMP, make sure that they certify that they're at least mostly procedurally are trying to do things right, but they're regulated as a food. Supplements are not regulated like drugs are, like pharmaceuticals. They have to go through a rigorous process. Homeopathy is regulated like pharmaceuticals, but not these supplements. They're regulated like food, and that means they're pretty much unregulated. And so it's up to the companies themselves. If somebody calls and said, this made me sick, the company is supposed to report it to the FDA, but there's no law saying that they have to. So,
okay.
Scary.
Yeah, it is scary. Quick question then. What from your understanding, and I know that you're not the supplement police per se, however, kind of, but yeah, your unofficial title.
Right.
What percentage of companies would you say really are not doing their due diligence, just in general, so we get a feel of how ubiquitous this problem might be?
I will be conservative at this point and say I believe that at least 70%, and I think it's higher than that, are not doing the diligence. I see mom and pop shops that come out and they have this wonderful wild crafted herb that they went out at the right time of year, the right time of day. They picked the plant, they processed it into this beautiful little thing that they're so happy about. And then I ask them, did you do testing? And they said, well, it's wild crafted, it's all organic. And I said, but arsenic and lead is in the ground. It doesn't matter that it's wildcrafted and organic. So I'm helping some of the mom and pops to even understand this, that you have to test. When you take a big bunch of anything and you concentrate that down into a capsule, you have concentrated those toxins. And that includes bacteria, fungal, yeast, all kinds of things besides these heavy metals and toxins we're talking about, and pesticides and herbicides if they're not organic.
Okay, and I'm going to have you go out on a limb a little bit on this one. There are a lot of other doctors out there. Some of them are maybe they've gone into the field of healthcare and are doctors that are very prominent and have their own product lines. Have you found that when you've looked at their products, because these are ubiquitous, I mean, they're so widely sold, have you found most of those have been tested properly?
Well, because when a doctor puts their name on a label, their reputation's on it. So they're more likely to have looked at the quality control if they know the questions to ask. And like I said, we don't really learn it. It's only because I was doing formulation and working in there that I learned all of these things. So a lot of doctors will go to a reputable manufacturer, but they may not be doing the diligence, but they're more likely. And they're getting more educated and asking these things because they want to protect themselves in case something negative happens.
Yeah, and a lot of people feel like they have some safeguard and, okay, I won't get the super cheap ones, you know, at Save Mart, but I'll go ahead and get the pretty expensive stuff thinking that there's some guarantee the quality is higher. What is that ratio in reality?
Well, in reality, I do think you do get what you pay for sometimes in supplements, that you do. The ones that are very inexpensive, there's a reason why. And I can tell by looking at a label, and I would ask your readers to look at anything. Don't look at what it says is in there. Look past it to the other ingredients. Are there fillers? Are there colors? They can look on EWG.org, Environmental Working Group. Look up those ingredients and say, wow, I don't want to put that in my body. It has silicone dioxide as a filler, which is a heavy metal. So if you can't pronounce it, it's probably not a good thing, right? And so, you know, this is supplements that we're putting in. We got to talk about the topical things that we're putting on too. We know most people have said, okay, we know parabens are bad, but there's a whole list of ingredients that should not be in skincare lines. And I finally got so tired of finding a natural organic one that would actually work and be clean that I couldn't find it. I finally formulated one and created my own little line because I wasn't finding the organic clean lines that were efficacious. So, you know, and a lot of doctors are starting to do that. They're saying, okay, it's organic, but it doesn't work in skincare.
Okay, so at the expense of sounding super commercial, what's the name of your line?
Oh, well, and they can only get it from me right now. Well, no, that's not true. They can get it from their doctors. Is distributed to doctors. It's called Dr. Zen Skin.
Zen?
Dr. Zen.
Zen Skin.
Yeah.
Right. Well, you have beautiful skin, so.
Well, I appreciate that. But, yeah. So we'll go, and that might be another show because it's very interesting, the environmental toxins that we're exposed to right now, Regina. I'm giving a lecture this weekend to physicians, an hour and a half, and I have to go every day to see a new study and how bad it is and how these things are in what we're putting in our body and what we're putting on our body, what we're breathing, what we're drinking. It's a scary show, but we might need to do a whole show on that one.
Okay.
But another thing in truth in labeling, there are some companies have formed a group called Truth in Labeling, and that means that they are holding each other to a little bit higher standard, and that's a nice thing. Another thing that your listeners may be interested in, just quick notes, is that just because something says it's natural doesn't necessarily mean that it is a good thing. There are natural toxins, there are natural things, and organic. Somebody can put an organic label on something, and by definition, they just have to have a molecule that has one carbon. So it doesn't mean organic, no pesticides, no herbicides, but it means they can put organic on there because it's one carbon. So we have to be careful with those. The other is misleading labels. People would say back in the day, they said, oh, I've got a high ORAC value. They'd say with an ORAC value of 24,000. But the way they put it on the front bottle on the sticker, you thought you got 24,000 or a number of an ORAC value with each serving. No, it was for the whole bottle.
Aha.
So you need to learn to know when they're telling you these things, is it per serving or is it for the whole bottle? Because there's a big difference there.
Indeed. Some of that is downright deceitful.
It is, and there's really no regulation. And so it's really up to the consumer. We'll try to educate them as much as we can, Regina, so they can ask these questions. But again, if your health food store tells you, you go to buy it, you say, I want to ask for C of A, they're going to tell you, what is that? And we don't have it. You can call the company themselves. And if they tell you they're not going to share that because it's proprietary, no, it's not. You're not asking for the formula. You're asking to show that they did the testing that they should be doing. It's an inexpensive test relatively for that company to do. So if they won't give you a C of A, try another company.
All right. Good advice. On that, we'll have to sign off here because I know you've got to run. And again, to everybody, my favorite Energizer bunny of health practitioners and doctors in the world, Dr. Donese Worden. And we'll be back in a week with another segment. Until next time, thank you so much for joining us here on reginameredith.com.